Call the meeting to order. Jen, will you take roll call?
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Thill.
Here.
Commissioner Waldner.
Here.
Mr. Corbin.
Broke up, I'm here.
Birthday party.
And Mayor Denner.
Here. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with taking item 8 off?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Jen?
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin.
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner.
Aye.
Commissioner Thill.
Aye.
Mayor Denner.
Aye. Jen, will you bring us up to speed on item number 1 under the appearance and acknowledgement? Acknowledge additional hazardous mitigation grant program funding for disaster number DR 4469.
I can. We have been notified by the State Hazard Mitigation Officer that his office will be opening an additional round of funding, additional funding opportunity with a new application due date of July 31st. Now, July 31st seems like a long ways away, but because of all that is involved in a hazard mitigation application, we at the Finance Office need to be notified immediately, as First District would like to be notified by Friday, May 15th.
Will it follow some of the same procedures that we've looked up till now? So it is.
Correct. Same
Cumbersome.
process. We have to start at the beginning, even here in this room, have to start at the beginning and step through all of the steps in the process again.
We have to agree to be a sponsor.
Correct. Correct. So I would suggest, once again, we weigh the interest and see what is out there, and then go through the process again if the group is willing.
How will you weigh that interest?
I will let that up to you.
Do I have a
You're stuck.
Do I have a motion to acknowledge additional hazardous mitigation grant program funding for disaster number DR 4469?
I'll move that.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Further discussion?
I simply want to clarify that the funding is open. That was my mistake on the agenda. The funding is open to all of the disasters that had funding the first time. The DR number is simply our disaster, which is the only one you can act on.
Well, I want to go back to my question because I don't want you to slip through the loop on that one. If we have to, the commission has to, you want the commission to ramrod this somehow? The checking out the pulse on this thing to see if there's more?
What we want to do tonight, if we can, is simply announce it, acknowledge it, and have anybody interested contact the Finance Office so that we can put them in direct contact with First District and then gauge the interest from there.
Because I do think there likely could be some people that just on second blush or second thought, maybe we should take this opportunity, and I want to make sure that they know that. And I'm not questioning that wouldn't happen, but I just want some clarity that how we're going to handle those opportunities in front of us. Thank you.
Okay?
Any further comments, discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take vote, please?
Commissioner Thill.
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner.
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
And Mayor Denner.
Aye. Anybody want anything taken off the consent calendar?
And I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any further comment? Not hearing. Jen?
Commissioner Corbin.
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Thill.
Aye.
And Mayor Denner.
Aye. Seeing nothing under unfinished business, we'll move into item number 1 under new business. Jen or Chad, you want to speak to item number 1, authorize the mayor to sign application, the office bar and grill permit to occupy right-of-way outdoor seating Southwest First Street.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I will abstain from voting on this.
Okay.
Jan, do you want to start, being you're in that room and I can add to it?
I will. You have as part of your agenda an application for permit to occupy right-of-way. Details are all filled out. The finance office has all of the additional paperwork they need as required for a bump out. On our end, as discussed last week when we approved the temporary permit for Sundog, we did request here an annual permit from May through October with the removal of said bump out by November 1st. And that would only be true if all of the dimensions and the description would be status quo for next year.
What was that last part? That very last part?
Providing that all of the details here in this permit to occupy right-of-way, the dimensions, the description, as long as all of that remains status quo, they don't have to bring this back before you. It is an annual permit.
And you and the finance office will take care of
We will,
the
because
insurance.
Correct. On an annual basis, we have to get insurance updates, we have an indemnity agreement that we have them sign and re-sign. As part of our admin process, we will just confirm with Mr. Carson if this is, Mr. Stemper, if this is so approved, that none of the details of this have changed.
So do I have a motion? Chad, did you want to talk about it before I get a motion, or?
I can just say we use this form as a catch-all form in the past for various types of items being placed in the right-of-way. And in the absence of anything different, as was discussed last week with the other party, this party was asked to fill this out as well. And then of course Jen works with the to have any necessary insurance and other requirements completed. So otherwise, I don't have much more to add. It's very similar to what has been done, and it seems as if the proper contingencies are added to allow that to provide for the need for the insurance and other agreements to be provided before anything gets placed in the right of way. It should be good to go.
Okay. Do I have a,
What's your aspect on this, Chad, of 12 foot wide when Sundog's only 8?
It would encroach into the roadway. Obviously, an extra 4 feet. It's not wider than what the parking stalls are. I believe I didn't have a chance to go out and put tape to it today. But in other words, if vehicles were parked there, it wouldn't stick out any farther than other vehicles. I believe that is a correct statement. If the applying party and the commission are comfortable with these, they're used in other parts of the state with dining and such, and we don't believe there's a hazard there for the pedestrians or the traffic. I think it would be acceptable to proceed.
I just think that we need to set some type of preference with either 8 foot or 10 foot, because you have one do it with 12 and one do it with 8. It's not very uniform. What's the rest of the commissioners think about it?
Commissioner Thill, this is Commissioner Corbin. What are your thoughts on allowing a wider one on the off streets and going with an 8-footer on Egan? I guess I'd be comfortable with that.
Well, I just think on a 12 foot's kind of wide stuff, so, and it's right down there by a catch basin. Who's going to be responsible if the water can't flow underneath that?
Oh, we've already, Matt?
Yeah.
I think Gary went down and talked to him about today, and I think Carson, we've already provided for the fact that they will get it up onto the curb,
Yeah,
so that the water
actually-
can flow underneath that.
Yeah, Gary had that
So
figured
that's,
out.
I think it's been addressed.
Okay.
I did talk to Police Chief Meyer on Friday. His concern, he had some concerns about the 12-foot. He also indicated to me that he could live with the 10-foot.
Can you get by with a 10-foot, Carson?
Yep, we can, 10-foot would be good.
I'd make the motion that we authorize 10 by 22 on the side street.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any further comment or discussion? I guess Commissioner Johnson and I was just talking here. Just so we're clear on this, Jen, the temporary means it's only going to be temporary that year, and they don't have to come back and redo this process unless something changes within this paperwork, correct?
They have to work with me on the process. We'll put it on our calendars. We'll touch base with both entities early
Okay.
in April, but this form here doesn't have to come back to you for approval.
Okay.
'Cause we
As
had
long
talked-
as it
we had-
stays 10 by 22.
We touched on that last week, hadn't we, about not making them come in every year, or
Right.
do this.
Right.
If it's working and there are no problematic features to it, I think it's,
I have one more question for David. If things break out again later on this summer, and we have to put restrictions on bars like we've got now, does this include in 10 people outside?
That'll be up to the resolution that the commission had passed. It could, it may not. It may be in addition to, it may be part of. I'd also remind the commission that this is a permit, and that permit can be revoked upon good cause. So if for some reason there's issues, problems, anything from drainage to other problems, the permit can be revoked. Not that I'm expecting it.
No,
And
God
I'm certainly
forbid.
not saying that there will be, but I want the commission to understand that the permitting process gives the commission a tremendous amount of leeway, perhaps, in how it goes forward. I understand it doesn't have to come back before you if certain specs are approved, but if there are ongoing issues or, God forbid, we find ourselves in a second wave COVID situation in the fall, all of those things are able to be addressed by the commission.
Commissioner Walder.
He's abstaining, and he shouldn't engage in any discussion.
No dialogue either,
No
huh?
discussion.
That's what happens when you throw your towel in. I don't see any complications with this at all. There's a portable unit, and it's encouraging to see people trying some things on Main Street, so.
Okay. Any further comments or discussion? Not here?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep. Yes.
this is Chad Comas. I think that this form could be used as is if you wanted to have write in the special conditions on it that says the 10 by 22 is approved, or an alternative is, I suppose, you could have a separate form signed by Mr. Stemper, whatever works best for the finance office for record keeping.
Okay. Thank you. Jen, will you take roll call?
Commissioner Corbin,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Thel,
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner is abstaining, Mayor Dennert.
Aye. number 2. Is Dan on? Did you get Dan on? Okay. Dan, we have Dan on the line here. We'll have him. He wants to speak to item number 2, adopt resolution number 2020-15, repeal resolution number 2020-14, limiting the number of patrons. Patron?
Hi all, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Denner, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. My name is Daniel Bursch, and I'm the President of the Board of Directors for the Greater Madison Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here on behalf of the board and our 300-plus members. I'm here today to ask you to lift the restrictions currently in place that will not allow more than 10 individuals into a business at a time, effective immediately. I'd like to make the suggestion that no restrictions are made outside of the current CDC position that recommends 6 feet be maintained between all patrons of an establishment, as well as concentrating on disinfecting any and all objects that may be touched by a patron. The one-size-fits-all approach just does not make sense for many of our members who have the ability to maintain this social distancing standard due to the size of their facility. This will allow our business owners to take responsibility for how they operate and maintain the integrity of their businesses. It is important to allow for these members to get back to work and to obtain the much-needed revenues so they are able to re-employ their currently laid-off staff and to meet their financial obligations such as rent and utilities. With that said, I believe the Commission needs to make it clear that even though these restrictions may be lifted, business owners must take the social distancing and cleansing recommendations seriously. Our elected officials will no longer be responsible for the future of their businesses in regards to COVID-19, and these owners must acknowledge the failure to create a safe environment could potentially mean more harm to their businesses. If these business owners are not taking these recommendations seriously and they do encounter infection within their establishments, they may see a much larger and a much longer revenue drop as patrons will no longer feel safe doing business there. I feel our members are responsible enough to take this into consideration, and I feel they will do their best to ensure the citizens of the Greater Madison area are protected as we relax the restrictions and slowly make our way back towards a normal society. As a chamber, we will continue to be a resource for our members if they have any questions or if they are in need of any resources that will allow them to get back to normal business operations. Personally speaking, my family and I will continue to social distance by utilizing takeout services from restaurants and limiting our visits to other businesses to reduce our risk of exposure to the virus. I just want to say thanks again for allowing me to take this time to address you guys, and I just hope you can support reopening Madison area businesses. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Eric, did you want to say?
Yes,
Lexi, can you hand him the?
All right, thanks, Mayor and Commissioners. I just have a few things to add to Dan's notes. After last week's meeting, I reached out to several of our chamber members that are restaurants and bars and posed them the question, if the restrictions are, if the resolution is repealed tonight, what would they prefer? You know, opening right away tomorrow, opening Thursday, what would they prefer? And the answers were really all over the board. Some will be ready to open tomorrow. Some said that they would be ready Thursday. Some, they don't know when they'll be ready to open based on corporate rules, things like that. But the one thing they all had in common is if there is an establishment that is ready Tuesday, they should be allowed to be open on Tuesday with the lesser restrictions. Suggestions that I guess I would have is keeping the seating at 6 feet. The one caveat to that I would say is if it's the same household, there's no reason for them to be sitting 6 feet apart. If my family of 4 wants to go into the office and eat, my 6-year-old shouldn't have to sit 6 feet away from the rest of our family. I would say keep the tables to a max of 6 people, just to help with that 6 foot. Bar areas would, you're gonna have to separate your bar stools 6 feet. You may have to go every 3rd bar stool. Obviously no condiments, napkins, plates, anything like that on the tables. Those things can be brought to the people that are there eating. Another suggestion would be one-time use items, ketchup packets instead of the squeeze bottles. One-time use menus, paper menus that can be just thrown away. Those types of things. I think those are things that, as a commission, need to be strongly encouraged to help everybody out. As far as my side, if this resolution is repealed tonight, I would contact all of our restaurants and bars that are chamber members. Not all of them in the community are chamber members, a large percentage are, but not all of them. But I would reach out to them and stress to them what the commission has suggested and how to proceed going forward. The other point I want to make is I envision a lot more outside seating asks coming to the commission, whether that just be outside seating on sidewalks or other parklets. But I would just encourage the commission to kind of keep an open mind within reason on those asks also. I know there's 2 restaurants already that are planning on bringing sidewalk seating in front of the commission. But like I said, whatever the commission decides tonight, I'll reach out to our members that fall into this category tonight and in the morning and let them know how you wish to have them proceed. But I think some suggestions should be strongly encouraged from the commission.
Do you like your plan that Dan had talked about and yourself on getting back to normal here? I just received an email from the community center. They're lightening up their restrictions. It is time to start working back towards being normal again. Taking these baby steps, I think we got a good plan to go with.
One other point I'll make too is, putting seating or tables 6 feet apart, that's naturally going to limit the numbers of patrons that some of these establishments can have. The restaurants that have booths, they're going to have to continue to go every other booth probably. So that's just going to naturally limit the number of people they can have in their facilities.
What's your opinion on, like, family reunion at Bachman Park, first part of June, I'm just throwing that out there. You have any objections to a bunch of people getting together as long as they stay 6 feet apart? I know it's not a chamber thing, but...
At some point, there's common sense that needs to come into this.
Yeah.
I don't envision, if a family reunion gets together at Bachman Park, I don't envision Chief Meyer out there with a tape measure making sure everybody's standing 6 feet apart.
I know, but are we gonna open that up to have family reunions in the parks, or what?
I think that's probably a Parks and Rec consideration, not to take your steam here.
Yeah.
But I think that you make a good point, Bob. But I think that's probably something Parks and Rec should take up. Now they meet tomorrow, we won't be able to get on the agenda, but we probably could get that on the agenda in June. But it is worthy of consideration and recommendation. So. The difficulty I have with this is it all comes down to personal responsibility at the end of the day. You know, personal responsibility of the establishment owners, but also the individuals. Is there anybody here who wants to speak against this? Would be my before I go on in a tirade, either in the gallery or telephonically or whatever. I think that,
Kelly, this is Mike here. Did we have a motion and a second yet?
No, not
Are we
yet.
in discussion?
We can, do I have a motion to adopt the resolution 2020-15, repeal resolution number 2020-14, limiting the number of patrons?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that. Second discussion.
Okay. Any further comments or discussion?
Well, as I was saying, thanks, Mike, for making that point that we did need a resolution, a vote, motion on that. You know, it comes down to that personal responsibility. I suspect there's nobody here to speak against it, because the people who are opposed to it probably aren't going out to eat. You know, they're probably taking extra protective measures, and that's their right there, and that's the way they take their responsibility. I don't feel we had great guidance, tremendous guidance from the state on this issue. You know, it seemed like it was 200, and then it was 50, and then it was 10 in about that much time. You know, so I don't exactly see this as, I think we're finding our own way along in this matter.
That was the CDC, by the way, it wasn't the state.
True. And as I said, I don't think we've had a great, we've had great response from the state on this. I'm not opposed to this. The biggest difficulty I have, and I'm probably speaking to this issue, is that I don't think we can, as a community, take the chance that this means everything is quickly returning to normal. I think repealing this resolution, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, might send that message, you know, that everything is returning to normal, and we just don't know that. In fact, there's a strong belief that a second wave will hit us, and hit us harder if we do not continue to do the kinds of things that we've done that have lowered the curve. So I could support this. I have some great hesitations, but it's a calculated risk, and the calculation is that people will act responsibly, that patrons will act responsibly, that and above all, that the owners of the establishments will act with dual or double responsibility towards this in making sure it happens.
Any further comment, discussion?
Mayor,
This is Commissioner Corbin. I guess my only thought is if things deteriorate, we can always reconvene either in a special meeting or regular meeting and tighten regulations back up. So I think it's time to give it a try and loosen things up and see how the community responds.
I'd like to look at this as an incremental movement, you know, towards a new goal. Excuse me. Go ahead.
So, are you done?
Oh, I can always get a lot more. I can talk a whole lot more, Mike, if you want.
This is Mike here. Just a couple of quick points that I have is, I think everybody here, everybody in this meeting, and not just in Madison, all across the world, nobody wants science to work faster than what it can. And unfortunately, until there's either a vaccine, some sort of pharmaceutical intervention, herd immunity, the science is science. And, you look at the public health officials, and it's pretty clear, we got a ways to go. And I think the mayor mentioned past meeting, we might be into this, it might be 2 years before we have some sort of vaccine, and hopefully it's within 6 months. I wish it'd come out tomorrow. I think we all would. However, at the same time, I don't think, as government, the best thing we can do for our businesses is help those businesses do their jobs and do what they do. And, I think what the Chamber Chairman Eric, what he said, Dan, your comments were very well thought out, and at the end of the day, the public's going to take care of themselves. They will keep themselves safe, and they'll vote with their pocketbook. If they don't feel safe at a business, they're not going to go into that business, and that's just the way it is. And the businesses, they know it, and I think they're gonna accommodate. And even before we did this resolution, we had some of the great business leaders in this town, stepped up to the plate before we even had this resolution in place.
Eric, did you want to?
Yeah, I think just, the establishments that fall under this resolution, I think they've done an outstanding job of adhering to that resolution, and I think it's gone a long ways. But I like Kelly's point too, this is an incremental step. It's not going to be like it was in February and January. This is a slow process to hopefully someday get back to some normalcy. But it also falls on each individual business. They need to, make sure their employees are healthy when they come to work.
And I think, Eric, once we do get back to that so-called normal, whatever the new normal will actually be, the CDC is the one who's going to be guiding the majority of that.
If there aren't some strong suggestions from the commission, it may come to the idea of it's wide open. I think strong suggestions from the commission on some steps will go a long ways on letting people know that this is a one step in the process.
And I think we have some of that in this resolution. The resolution number 2020-15 that's in the packet. I guess it does say citizens, all citizens. It doesn't actually come out and say all of these businesses and like you, Eric, I don't mean to even single out just these businesses. I mean it's every business and yeah, every citizen. I don't know what else you would be looking for on that, Eric.
I guess I would, if there's some way to put in some verbiage about suggesting the one-time use options and those types of things, sanitizing, if you're not going to use a ketchup packet, for example, and you use the squeeze bottles, that those need to be sanitized after each use.
This is Mike again here, and I don't think that that's something that the commission, it's probably something that we should not do, and mostly because we're not a restaurant, we're not a bar, that's not our areas of expertise. And I guess I would maybe say, Eric, I would encourage you to do that. I think some of those ideas you've brought them up at other meetings. I think you're dead on with a lot of those things that will help that entity feel safer for the public, without a doubt. And I would also submit that I bet every one of the restaurant bar owners have already come up with some of their own innovative and creative ideas as well. But I don't think that's a list of items that the commission should come up with.
This is Commissioner Corbin. I'm not really sure how we would regulate items such as that. We don't have a code enforcement officer, and if we did, that'd be a bit overwhelming. I guess I'm looking at this as the business community's asking us to step back, and they want to self-regulate. Those are good recommendations, but I tend to agree with Mike. I think it should come from the chamber.
Yes, Brett.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. If you go to the Executive Order 2020-20, it talks about South Dakota's Back to Normal plan, and under enclosed retail businesses that promote public gatherings, resume operations in a manner that allows for reasonable physical distancing, good hygiene, and appropriate sanitation, consider restricting occupancy, and continue innovating in this uncertain environment. And all the things that you have discussed, Eric, cover that. And I think that my recommendation to the commission would be to more or less endorse the Back to Normal plan from the governor and say that that should be followed by the businesses.
And that is specifically what the resolution states.
Yeah.
That all citizens are strongly suggested to follow Governor Noem's Back to Normal plan for South Dakota, which recommends following CDC hygiene and social distancing practices.
I agree with Commissioner Corbin. We're not going to have our police departments out making sure all the restaurants are having one-time use menus. It's going to be hard to regulate. I think we need to leave that up to the businesses and go from there. We do have it in the resolution to use the Back to Normal, like Mr. Lawrence has said. So, right. If there's any other comments, discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Corbin.
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner.
Aye.
Commissioner Thill.
Aye.
Mayor Danner.
Aye. Moving down into number 3, Chad or Brad, you want to bring us up to speed on accept preliminary engineering report addendum 1, Banner Association Inc., sanitary and storm sewer system improvement project.
Yeah, I can say a few words, and then with Director Lawrence in the room, he can perhaps elaborate better.
Okay.
This item is a preliminary engineering report and an addendum to said report. The report was originally accepted by the commission on October 21st, 2019. There was a few review comments by Rural Development. The revised report was then accepted on December 23rd, 2019. Then that was also sent to Rural Development, and then they had some more comments submitted in March 18th. We were working with Banner, responded to those on the 24th of March, and then there was additional comments on the 31st of March. And ultimately, it was collectively decided and thought appropriate that these final sets of comments be reconciled, if you will, with this addendum, rather than officially revising the preliminary engineering report again. And that's what you see in the agenda packet. This revision is acceptable to Rural Development. They've concurred with the preliminary engineering report, with this addendum as part of said report. And so to be consistent with what we've done in October and December, we wanted to accept the final document essentially, and that's what this item does. And if I can add to anything that any part of our steering committee, if you want to call us that, and any of Mr. Commissioner Corbin or Director Lawrence can add to that, or Jen even for that matter.
You did a great job, Chad.
Do I have a motion to accept the preliminary engineering report addendum 1, Banner Association Inc. Sanitary and Storm Sewer System Improvement Project?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or discussion?
This is a project that we've been talking about for just 2 months shy, 2 years. Maybe not even June. We started on June of 2018. I guess it's on the agenda. Anybody have any questions? It's a pretty big project. My statement kind of rolled into a question. It's a pretty comprehensive deal. I think we're going to have some pretty nice infrastructure in these areas when it's gone. I guess that's all I have for now.
Any further comments, discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thel?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Item number 4, Chad, authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1942-46, letter of intent to meet conditions, USDA Rural Development Wastewater Sanitary Sewer System Improvement Project.
Thank you. I can address a few of these items. The next 4 items are somewhat tied, and so some of what I say here is certainly going to be applicable in some of the others. And then I think Finance Officer Reimers will talk about some of those with a little more emphasis than I will. But getting to this item, number 4, letter of intent to meet conditions. This in the agenda packet is literally a letter. Multiple page letter with how many bullet points do we have in this thing? Looks like there's 48 bullet points of conditions that the city has to meet. It is related to the preliminary engineering report and that particular project that we just talked about. That preliminary engineering report had to do with the sanitary and storm sewer improvements. This particular letter of intent on item number 4 is for the wastewater portion of that report. It's for a list alone of $3.214 million, and then a significant amount of other criteria that rural development requires for the city to meet before we can proceed to construction. As you are aware, we, as an example, recently we just bid a rural development funded project where we met these conditions or similar conditions nearly verbatim for a water improvement project. Basically, these are items that we need to comply with or we don't get the funding. So we don't see it as being really a negotiable letter. These are just things that we have to meet. We've done this with the water. We are working towards being prepared to do this for this sanitary sewer portion of the project, as well as, like I alluded to in an upcoming agenda item here, for the storm sewer portion of the project. Our steering committee, I use that term, we don't have an official name or were they organized by resolution or anything, but it's just a non-quorum number of commission members and then staff working on the project has reviewed this and many other components for the project, and I think it's fair to say I would recommend that the commission approve this, and this letter of conditions and then sign the letter of intent or the request to obligate funds. With that, I'll stand by for Brad, Commissioner Corbin, or Mayor Dennert, as well as working on the committee to add to any components I may have left out.
Do I have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1942-46, letter of intent to meet condition USDA Rural Development Wastewater Sanitary Sewer System Improvement Projects?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments, discussion?
This letter before you, then, the letter of intent to meet conditions, is part of the conditions, if you will, of the 34-page letter that is part of your packet. Simply says that we will meet the conditions of the letter dated 5/4/2020, no later than 10/31 of 2020. Mr. Morris is on the line too. Toby, if you have anything to add, jump in, please. Can you hear us?
I can. I think Chad summed it up very well. It's a mirror image of the previous one that you did sign about a year ago. So I reviewed it and see no issues.
Any further comments, discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thill?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Jen, you want to bring us up to speed on number 5, authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1940-1, request for obligation of fund, USDA Rural Development Wastewater Sanitary Sewer System Improvement.
Same is true here, gentlemen. The 34-page letter dictates that we get a signature on this request for obligation of funds. This very short form here just lists the city of Madison as the borrower. The amount is $3,214,000 at an interest rate of 1.8750 for repayment terms of 40 years.
Do I have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1940-1, request for obligation of fund, USDA Rural Development Wastewater Sanitary Sewer System Improvement Project?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments, discussion? Toby, did you have it?
This is Commissioner Corbin.
Yes.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Jen, Toby, not to put you guys on the spot, do you recall the interest rate we're paying on the water portion of this project?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. Now I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, sorry.
Isn't it 3.25, isn't it?
I would, is there any way?
1.875.
The water portion is a little higher, isn't it? Is that like 2 1/4 or something like that?
What'd you say, Toby? Did you mention it?
On the USDA loan was the 1.875 and the SRF was 2.125, if I understand the question correctly when we ran the analysis.
I was referring back to the loan for the water portion that we got a year and a half ago.
I'm sorry. Yes, you are correct. That would have been 2 1/4 fixed for 40 years.
Do you know if there's any way we can lock that interest rate in at the 1.875 now, or is that something that's set when we close?
No, I spoke with RD, Commissioner, and you've got the best of both worlds in that meaning if the rates were to rise, you're at the 1.875. If the rates were to go down, you could actually get the benefit of that.
Okay, thank you.
Toby, did you have anything else to say about this? Or comment?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay. Not hearing any more comments or discussion. Jen, will you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thel?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Number 6, Chad, authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1942-46, letter of intent to meet conditions, USDA Rural Development Storm Sewer System Improvement Projects.
Thank you, Your Honor, and many of the items I had talked about previously stand also for this item. This loan amount is for $3.434 million, and with a lengthy 48-bullet letter of conditions also included for this. This has also been reviewed by the advisory committee, and they would recommend approval. And this is for, as the name implies, for the stormwater improvements for the what started as our water system improvement projects. Otherwise, I'd stand by for questions.
Brad, did you have anything to add?
No, just the same thing as what we did before, just for storm sewer this time.
Okay. Do I have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1942-46, letter of intent to meet conditions, USDA Rural Development Storm Sewer System Improvement Projects?
Make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further comments, discussion? We're at the same rate as before for 40 years, the 1.875?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the next one.
Okay.
The one you're voting on right now is just the letter of
Yep.
conditions, that's correct.
Not hearing any comments or discussion. Jen, will you take roll call?
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Thel?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Jen, will you bring us up to speed on number 7? Authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1940-1, request for obligations of fund USDA Rural Development Storm Sewer System Improvement Project.
Same identical form here, just a few different, the amount of the loan is $3,434,000. Like you mentioned, Mayor, at 1.875% interest rate, also for 40 years.
Do I have a motion to authorize the mayor to sign Form RD 1940-1, request for obligation of funds, USDA Rural Development Storm Sewer System Improvement Projects?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Any further comment, discussion? Not hearing any. Jen, will you take roll call vote on this one, please?
Commissioner Corbin?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldner?
Aye.
Commissioner Thel?
Aye.
Mayor Denner?
Aye. Public comment?
Thanks, Toby.
Thank.
Is there anyone?
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Toby. Is there anybody online that would like to take part in public comment?
Can I ask David a question?
Sure.
When does, so we repealed the one resolution and enacted another one, when does that officially occur? As soon as that motion was made, or midnight, or tomorrow?
Yeah, I would say midnight. It appears that the resolutions have been drafted to be immediately. So, at the latest, midnight.
Thank you.
Public comment? Okay. Any announcements? Seeing nothing on executive session, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor, signify by aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
New batteries, huh?
Apparently so.
Why poke the bear? We'll wait, we'll see what happens.